Hare Krishna, everyone. Welcome to the daily readings of Srila Prabhupada's books. Or, if you're coming back, welcome back. If you're there for the first time, welcome. If you're coming back, welcome back. Does it look like we're on?
Yes. Does it?
It does?
It says live on the thing.
Yeah, that's right.
Do I have to hit finish?
No, that's at the end.
That's at the end. Okay.
Yeah, you hit finish at the end.
I'm glad
Our
I did that.
techie is coming back from a store to get a new tripod to fit the phone on, which is a little more sturdy because this one's about ready to, give in its last legs. And so we got a new techie. John Bhakta John is the new techie, and he's first time, and he's doing great. Welcome to everybody, Krishna's new family members. Pat, Janaki, that's a really unusual name. I have a disciple named Janaki, who was one of the best musicians in the world.
Wow.
And she left her body by cancer. But she left a really, really beautiful musical glorification of Krishna. She dedicated one of her tracks to me, very meaningful to me. Every time I hear it, I practically cry. It's called Above and Beyond.
Wow.
So you can Google it and get it and listen to it. And Janaki's the artist. There you go. Okay, here we are all together again. And Krishna's family is growing. We're now up to 1,200 and almost 1,250. It's going up a lot, and quickly too. It's getting traction, this hearing and chanting of Prabhupada's books every day. All right, before we start, we're going to hear the glorification of the Srimad-Bhagavatam, which we're about to read, by Sanatana Goswami, who's a very dear and intimate disciple of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, senior disciple actually. And his brother is Rupa Goswami, who we are all called Rupanugas. We're all followers of Rupa Goswami because he was very dear to Lord Chaitanya also. And this was his glorification. We're going to read the Sanskrit and the English. It goes like this. Sarva Shastrabdi Piyusha Sarva Vedaika Satpala Sarva Siddhanta Ratnaja Sarva Lokaika Drikprada. O nectar from the ocean of all scriptures, singular fruit of all the Vedas, rich mine of the precious gems of all conclusive truths, you are the only giver of sight to all the worlds. Sarva Bhagavata Prana Srimad-Bhagavata Prabho Kalidwandodita Ditya Shri Krishna Parivartita. O life air of all the Supreme Lord's devotees, O Master Srimad-Bhagavatam, you are the sun risen in the darkness of Kali. You are the exact image of Sri Krishna. Paramananda Pataya Prema Varshaksharayate Sarvadasa Vasevyaya Shri Krishnaya Namostume. I bow down to you who are supremely blissful to read. Your every syllable pours down a flood of prema. You can always be served by everyone. You are Sri Krishna himself. Madeka Bando Matsangin Madguro Man Mahadana Man Nishtadaga Mad Bhagya Mad Ananda Namostute. My only friend, my constant companion, my spiritual master, my great wealth, my savior, my good fortune, my source of ecstasy, I bow down to you. Asadu Saduta Dayin Adini Chochatakara Hanamunchagadachin Mam Premnarit Kandayospura. O bestower of saintliness to the unsaintly, O exalter of the most fallen, please never leave me. Always appear in my heart and my voice with pure love. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Okay, now, this is a heavy chapter. When Lord Shiva heard that Parvati, that Sati, had actually left her body in front of her father, in front of all the persons, the exalted persons at the sacrifice, at Daksha's sacrifice, he became obviously upset. And he decided to teach Daksha a lesson. And so he pulled a hair from his body, and hair in the head, and he threw it down. And this flame came up, and a huge, dark character came out of this. And he asked, his name was Virabhadra, and he said, "My lord, what would you like me to do?" And he said, "I want you to go kill Daksha." Now this is very unusual because Lord Shiva he's Dhira, he's the supreme Dhira. He's always very equipoised, and he was ordered by Brahma in the beginning, when he first appeared, to go and meditate, and you can come back and do your thing when it comes time for the universe to be destroyed, because he had this heavy energy. But now he's as service to teach humanity lessons. He's doing this. Okay? So, along with this self-created being, all of the followers of Lord Shiva went with him to the sacrifice that Daksha was holding, without inviting Lord Shiva, which is against the Vedic regulations. By Canto 4, Chapter 5, Text 13. My dear Vidura, all the followers of Lord Shiva surrounded the arena of sacrifice. They were of short stature and were equipped with various kind of weapons. Their bodies appeared to be like those of sharks, blackish and yellowish. They ran all around the sacrificial arena and thus began to create disturbances. Text 14. Some of the soldiers pulled down the pillars which were supporting the pandal of sacrifice. Some of them entered the female quarters, some began destroying the sacrificial arena, and some entered the kitchen and the residential quarters. 15. They broke all the pots made for the use in the sacrifice, and some of them began to extinguish the sacrificial fire. Some tore down the boundary line of the sacrificial arena, and some passed urine on the arena. Ooh. 16. Some blocked the way of the fleeing sages, some threatened the women assembled there, and some arrested the demigods who were fleeing the pandal. 17. Maniman, one of the followers of Lord Shiva, arrested Bhrigu, and Virabhadra, the black demon, arrested Prajapati Daksha. Another follower who was named Chandesha arrested Pusha. Nandishvara arrested the demigod Bhaga. Text 18. There was a continuous shower of stones, and all the priests and other members assembled at the sacrifice were put into immense misery. For fear of their lives, they dispersed in different directions. Text 19. Virabhadra tore off the mustache of Bhrigu, who was offering the sacrificial oblations with his hands in the fire. Text 20. Virabhadra immediately cut Bhaga, who had been moving his eyebrows during Daksha's cursing of Lord Shiva, and of great anger thrust him to the ground and forcibly put out his eyes. Whoa! Text 21. Just as Baladev knocked out the teeth of Dantavakra, the king of Kalinga, during the gambling match at the marriage ceremony of Aniruddha, Virabhadra knocked out the teeth of both Daksha, who had shown them while cursing Lord Shiva, and Pusha, who by smiling sympathetically had also shown his teeth. Purport. Here a reference is made to the marriage of Aniruddha, a grandson of Lord Krishna's. He kidnapped the daughter of Dantavakra and thereafter he was arrested. Just as he was to be punished for the kidnapping, the soldiers from Dwarka arrived, headed by Balaram, and a fight ensued amongst the Kshatriyas. This sort of fight was very common, especially during marriage ceremonies, when everyone was in a challenging spirit. In that challenging spirit, a fight was sure to occur, and in such fights, there was commonly killing and misfortune. After finishing such fighting, the parties would come to compromise, and everything would be settled. This Daksha Yajna was similar to such events. Now all of them, Daksha and the demigods, Bhaga and Pusha and Brighabhuni, were punished by the soldiers of Lord Shiva. But later everything would come to a peaceful end. So this spirit of fighting between one another was not exactly inimical, because everyone was so powerful and wanted to show his strength by Vedic mantra or mystic power. All these fighting skills were very elaborately exhibited by the different parties in the Daksha Yajna. Text 22. Then Virabhadra, the giant-like personality, sat on the chest of Daksha and tried to separate his head from his body with the sharp weapons, but was unsuccessful. Text 23. He tried to cut the head of Daksha with hymns as well as weapons, but still it was hard to cut even the surface of the skin of Daksha's head. Thus Virabhadra was exceedingly bewildered. Text 24. Then Virabhadra saw the wooden device in the sacrificial arena by which the animals were to have been killed. He took the opportunity of this facility to behead Daksha. Purport. In this connection, it is to be noted that the device used for killing animals in the sacrifice was not designed to facilitate eating their flesh. The killing was specifically intended to give a new life to the sacrificed animal by the power of Vedic mantras. The animals were sacrificed to test the strength of the Vedic mantras. Yajnas were performed as a test of the mantra. Even in the modern age, tests are executed on animal bodies by the physiology laboratory. Similarly, whether or not the Brahmanas were uttering the Vedic hymns correctly was tested by sacrifice in the arena. On the whole, the animals thus sacrificed were not at all the losers. Some old animals would be sacrificed, but in exchange for their old bodies, they received other new bodies. That was the test of Vedic mantras. Virabhadra, instead of sacrificing animals with the wooden device, immediately beheaded Daksha to the astonishment of everyone. Text 25. Upon seeing the action of Virabhadra, the party of Lord Shiva was pleased and cried out joyfully, and all the bhutas, ghosts and demons that had come made a tumultuous sound. On the other hand, the Brahmanas in charge of the sacrifice cried out in grief at the death of Daksha. 26. Virabhadra then took the head with great anger, threw it into the southern side of the sacrificial arena, offering it as an oblation. In this way, the followers of Lord Shiva devastated all the arrangements for the sacrifice. After setting fire to the whole arena, they departed for their master's abode, Kailas. Thus end the Bhaktivedanta purports, the fourth canto, fifth chapter of Srimad-Bhagavatam, entitled Frustration at the Sacrifice of Daksha. Hare Krishna Leela. Hey Carter. Hari Bo.
Leela.
It's probably because you came in.
Leela, Lily. I mean, you know, it's like, it's evolving. It's evolving.
Is that my real name?
Not yet.
He was thinking of Krishna Leela, right?
No, I mean, it could have been a Freudian slip. It could have been somebody like revealing something. I don't know. Okay, moving on to chapter 6. Brahma satisfies Lord Shiva. Text 1 to 2. All the priests and other members of the sacrificial assembly, and all the demigods, having been defeated by the soldiers of Lord Shiva and injured by weapons like tridents, swords, approached Lord Brahma with great fear. After offering him obeisances, they began to speak in detail of all the events which had taken place. Text 3. Both Lord Brahma and Vishnu had already known that such events would occur in the sacrificial arena of Daksha. And knowing beforehand, they did not go to the sacrifice. Purport. As stated in Bhagavad Gita 7.26, Vedaham samatitani vartamanani charjana. The Lord says, I know everything that has happened in the past and is going on and is going to happen in the future. Lord Vishnu is omniscient, and he therefore knew what would happen at Daksha's sacrificial arena. For this reason, neither Narayana nor Lord Brahma attended the great sacrifice performed by Daksha. Text 4. When Lord Brahma heard everything from the demigods and the members who had attended the sacrifice, he replied, You cannot be happy in executing a sacrifice if you blaspheme a great personality and thereby offend his lotus feet. You cannot have happiness in that way. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Charna. Purport. We're on text 4, chapter 6. Lord Brahma explained to the demigods that although Daksha wanted to enjoy the results of fruitive sacrificial activities, it is not possible to enjoy when one offends a great personality like Lord Shiva. It was good for Daksha to have died in the fight, because if he had lived, he would have committed such offenses at the lotus feet of great personalities again and again. According to Manu's law, when a person commits murder, punishment is beneficial for him, because if he is not killed, he might commit more and more murders and therefore be entangled in his future lives for having killed so many persons. Therefore, the king's punishment of a murderer is appropriate. If those who are extremely offensive are killed by the grace of a Lord, that is good for them. In other words, Lord Brahma explained to the demigods that it was good for Daksha to have been killed. Text 5. You have excluded Lord Shiva from taking place in the sacrificial results, of taking part in the sacrificial results, and therefore you are all offenders at his lotus feet. Still, if you go without mental reservations and surrender unto him and fall down at his lotus feet, he will be very pleased. Purport. Lord Shiva is also called Ashutosha. Ashu means very soon, and Tosha means to become satisfied. The demigods were advised to go to Lord Shiva and beg his pardon, and because he is very easily pleased, it was certain that their purpose would be served. Lord Brahma knew the mind of Lord Shiva very well, and he was confident that the demigods, who were offenders at his lotus feet, could mitigate their offenses by going to him and surrendering without reservation. Text 6. Lord Brahma also advised them that Lord Shiva is so powerful that by his anger, all the planets and their chief controllers can be destroyed immediately. Also, he said that Lord Shiva was especially sorry because he had recently lost his dear wife and was also very much afflicted by the unkind words of Daksha. Under the circumstances, Lord Brahma suggested it would behoove them to go at once and beg his pardon. Lord Brahma said that no one, not even himself, Indra, all the members assembled in the sacrificial arena, or all the sages, could know how powerful Lord Shiva is. under the circumstances, who would dare to commit an offense at his lotus feet? After Lord Brahma advised the demigods to go to Lord Shiva and beg his pardon, it was suggested how he could be satisfied and how the matter should be placed before him. Brahma also asserted that none of the conditioned souls, including himself and all the demigods, could know how to satisfy Lord Shiva. But, he said, it is known that he is very easily satisfied. So let us try to satisfy him by falling at his lotus feet. Actually, the position of the subordinate is always to surrender to the Supreme. That is the instruction of Bhagavad Gita. The Lord asks everyone to give up all kinds of concocted occupations and simply surrender unto him. That will protect the conditioned souls from all sinful reactions. Similarly, in this case, Brahma also suggested that they go and surrender unto the lotus feet of Lord Shiva. For since he is very kind and very easily satisfied, this action would prove effective. Text 8. After thus instructing all the demigods, the Pitas and the lords of the living entities, Lord Brahma took them with him and left for the abode of Lord Shiva, known as the Kailas Hill. Purport. The abode of Lord Shiva, which is known as Kailas, is described in the 14 verses which follow. Text 9. The abode known as Kailas is full of different herbs and vegetables, and it is sanctified by Vedic hymns and mystic yoga practice. Thus the residents of that abode are demigods by birth and have all mystic powers. Besides them, there are other human beings who are known as Kinnaras and Gandharvas and are accompanied by their beautiful wives who are known as Apsaras or angels. Text 10. Kailas is full of mountains filled with all kinds of valuable jewels and minerals, and surrounded by all varieties of valuable trees and plants. The top of the hill is nicely decorated by various types of deer. Text 11. There are many waterfalls, and in the mountains there are many beautiful caves in which the beautiful wives of the mystics are found. Text 12. On Kailas Hill, there is always the rhythmical sound of the peacock's sweet vibrations and the bees humming. Cuckoos are always singing, and other birds whisper amongst themselves. 13. There are tall trees with straight branches that appear to call the sweet birds, and when herds of elephants pass through the hills, it appears that the Kailas Hill moves with them. When the waterfalls resound, it appears that Kailas Hill does also. 14 and 15. The whole of Kailas Hill is decorated with various kinds of trees, of which the following names may be mentioned: Mandara, Parijata, Sarala, Tamala, Tala, Govidara, Asana, Arjuna, Amrajati, Mango, Kadamba, Duli Kadamba, Naga, Punaga, Champaka, Patala, Ashoka, Bakula, Kunda, and Kurabaka. The entire hill is decorated with such trees which produce flowers with fragrant aromas. 16. There are other trees also. There are other trees also which decorate the hill, such as the golden lotus flower, the cinnamon tree, malati, kubja, malika, and madhavi. Text 17. Kailas Hill is also decorated with such trees as kata, jackfruit, julara, banyan trees, plakshas, nyagrodhas, and trees producing asafoetida. Also there are trees of betel nuts and burja patra, as well as rajapuga blackberries, and similar other trees. Text 18. There are mango trees, priyala, maduka, and inguda. Besides these, there are other trees like thin bamboos, kichaka, and varieties of other bamboo trees, all decorating the tract of Kailas Hill. There are different kinds of lotus flowers, such as kumuda, utpala, and shatapatra. The forest appears to be a decorated garden, and the small lakes are full of various kinds of birds who whisper very sweetly. There are many kinds of other animals also, like deer, monkeys, boars, lions, rikshas, shalyakas, forest cows, forest asses, tigers, small deer, buffalo, and many other animals who were fully enjoying their lives. Text 21. There are varieties of deer, such as karnantra, ekapada, ashwasha, brika, and kasturi, the deer which bears musk. Besides the deer, there are many banana trees which decorate the small hillside lakes very nicely. Text 22. There is a small lake named Alakananda in which Sati used to take her bath, and that lake is especially auspicious. All the demigods, after seeing the specific beauty of Kailas Hill, were struck with wonder at the great opulence to be found there. Purport. According to the commentary called Sri Bhagavata Chandra Chandrika, the water in which Sati used to bathe was Ganges water. In other words, the Ganges flowed through the Kailas Parvata. There is every possibility of accepting such a statement, because Ganges water also flows from the hair of Lord Shiva. Since Ganges water rests on the head of Lord Shiva and then flows to the other parts of the universe, it is quite possible that the water in which Sati bathed, which was certainly very nicely scented, was Ganges water. Text 23. Thus the demigods saw the wonderfully beautiful region known as Alaka in the forest known as Sogandika, which means full of fragrance. The forest is known as Sogandika because of its abundance of lotus flowers. Purport. Sometimes Alaka is known as Alakapuri, which is also the name of the abode of Kubera. Kubera's abode, however, cannot be seen from Kailas. Therefore the region of Alaka, referred to here, is different from the Alakapuri of Kubera. According to Viraraghava Acharya, Alaka means uncommonly beautiful. In the region of Alaka, the demigods saw there is a type of lotus flower known as Saugandhika that distributes an especially fragrant scent. Text 24. They also saw the two rivers named Nanda and Alakananda. These two rivers are sanctified by the dust of the lotus feet of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Govinda. Text 25. My dear Chatta, Vidura, the celestial damsels come down to those rivers in their airplanes with their husbands, and after sexual enjoyment they enter the water and enjoy sprinkling their husbands with water. Purport. It is understood that even the damsels of the heavenly planets are polluted by thoughts of sex enjoyment, and therefore they come in airplanes to bathe in the rivers Nanda and Alakananda. It is significant that these rivers, Nanda and Alakananda, are sanctified by the dust of the lotus feet of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. In other words, just as the Ganges is sacred because its water emanates from the toes of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Narayana, so whenever water or anything is in touch with devotional service to the Supreme Personality of Godhead, it is purified and spiritualized. The rules and regulations of devotional service are based on this principle. Anything in touch with the lotus feet of the Lord is immediately freed from all material contamination. The damsels of the heavenly planets, polluted by thoughts of sex life, come down to bathe in the sanctified rivers and enjoy sprinkling water on their husbands. Two words are very significant in this connection. Ratikarshita means that the damsels become morose after sex enjoyment. Although they accept sex enjoyment as a bodily demand, afterwards they are not happy. Another significant point is that Lord Govinda, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, is described here as Tirthapada. Tirtha means sanctified place, and Pada means the lotus feet of the Lord. People go to a sanctified place to free themselves from all sinful reactions. In other words, those who are devoted to the lotus feet of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Krishna, automatically become sanctified. The Lord's lotus feet are called Tirthapada because under their protection there are hundreds and thousands of saintly persons who sanctify the sacred places of pilgrimage. Srila Narottam Das Thakur, a great Acharya of the Gaudiya Vaishnava Sampradaya, advises us not to travel to different places of pilgrimage. Undoubtedly, it is troublesome to go from one place to another, but one who is intelligent can take shelter of the lotus feet of Govinda and thereby be automatically sanctified as the result of his pilgrimage. Anyone who is fixed in the service of the lotus feet of Govinda is called Tirthapada. He does not need to travel on various pilgrimages, for he can enjoy all the benefits of such travel simply by engaging in the service of the lotus feet of the Lord. Such a pure devotee who has implicit faith in the lotus feet of the Lord can create sacred places in any part of the world where he decides to remain. Tirti kurvanti tirtani. The places are sanctified due to the presence of pure devotees. Any place automatically becomes a place of pilgrimage if either the Lord or his pure devotee remains or resides there. In other words, such a pure devotee who is engaged 100% in the service of the Lord can remain anywhere in the universe, and that part of the universe immediately becomes a sacred place where he can peacefully render service to the Lord as the Lord desires. Text 26. After the damsels of the heavenly planets bathe in the water, it becomes yellowish and fragrant due to the kum from their bodies. Thus the elephants come to bathe there with their wives, the she-elephants, and they also drink the water, although they are not thirsty. Text 27. The airplanes of the heavenly denizens are bedecked with pearls, gold, and many valuable jewels. The heavenly denizens are compared to clouds in the sky decorated with occasional flashes of electric lightning. Purport. The airplanes described in this verse are different from the airplanes of which we have experience. In the Srimad-Bhagavatam and all the Vedic literatures, there are many descriptions of vimana, which means airplanes. On different planes, on different planets, there are different kinds of airplanes. On this gross planet Earth, there are airplanes run by machine, but on other planets, the airplanes are run not by machine, but by mantric hymns. They are also used especially for enjoyment by the denizens of the heavenly planets, so that they can go from one planet to another. On other planets, which are called siddhalokas, the denizens can travel from one planet to another without airplanes. The beautiful airplanes from the heavenly planets are compared here to the sky because they fly in the sky. The passengers are compared to the clouds. The beautiful damsels, the wives of the denizens of the heavenly planets, are compared to lightning. In summation, the airplanes with their passengers which came from higher planets to Kailas were very pleasant to look at. Text 28. While traveling, the demigods passed over the forest known as Saugandhika, which is full of varieties of flowers, fruits, and desire trees. While passing over the forest, they also saw the regions of Yaksheshwar. Purport. Yaksheshwar is also known as Kubera, and he is the treasurer of the demigods. In the descriptions of him in Vedic literature, it is stated that he is fabulously rich. It appears from these verses that Kailas is situated near the residential quarters of Kubera. It is also stated here that the forest was full of desire trees. In Brahma Samhita, it is also stated here. In the Brahma Samhita, we learn about the desire tree, which is found in the spiritual world, especially in Krishna Loka, the abode of Lord Krishna. We learn here that such desire trees are also found in Kailas, the residence of Lord Shiva, by the grace of Krishna. It thus appears that Kailas has a special significance. It is almost like the residence of Lord Krishna. Text 29. In that celestial forest, there were many birds whose necks were colored reddish and whose sweet sounds mixed with the humming of the bees. The lakes were abundantly decorated with crying swans, as well as strong-stemmed lotus flowers. Purport. The beauty of the forest was intensified by the presence of various lakes. It is described herein that the lakes were decorated with lotus flowers and with swans who played and sang with the birds and the humming bees. Considering all these attributes, one can imagine how beautiful this spot was and how much the demigods passing through enjoyed the atmosphere. There are many paths and beautiful spots created by man on this planet Earth, but none of them can surpass those of Kailas as they are described in these verses. Text 30. All these atmospheric influences unsettled the forest elephants who flocked together in the sandalwood forest, and the blowing wind agitated the minds of the damsels there for further sexual enjoyment. Purport. Whenever there is a nice atmosphere in the material world, immediately there is an awakening of the sexual appetite in the minds of materialistic persons. This tendency is present everywhere within this material world, not only on this earth, but in higher planetary systems as well. In complete contrast with the influence of this atmosphere on the minds of the living entities within the material world is the description of the spiritual world. The women there are hundreds and thousands of times more beautiful than the women here in this material world. And the spiritual atmosphere is also many times better. Yet despite the pleasant atmosphere, the minds of the denizens do not become agitated, because in the spiritual world, the Vaikuntha planets, the spiritualistic minds of the inhabitants are so much absorbed in the spiritual vibration of chanting the glories of the Lord, that such enjoyment could not be surpassed by any other enjoyment, even sex, which is the culmination of all pleasure in the material world. In other words, in the Vaikuntha world, in spite of its better atmosphere and facilities, there is no impetus for sex life. Stated in Bhagavad Gita, param drishtva nivartate. The inhabitants are so spiritually enlightened that in the presence of such spirituality, sex life is insignificant. Text 31. They also saw that the bathing ghats and their staircases were made of Vaidurya money. The water was full of lotus flowers. Passing by such lakes, the demigods reached a place where there was a great banyan tree. Text 32. That banyan tree was 800 miles high, and its branches spread over 600 miles around. The tree cast a fine shade which permanently cooled the temperature, yet there was no noise of birds. Purport. Generally in every tree there are bird nests. and the birds congregate in the evening and create noise. But it appears that this banyan tree was devoid of nests, and therefore it was calm, quiet, and peaceful. There were no disturbances from noise or heat, and therefore this place was just suitable for meditation. The demigods saw Lord Shiva sitting under that tree, which was competent to give perfection to mystic yogis and deliver all people. As grave as time eternal, he appeared to have given up all anger. Purport. In this verse, the word Maha-yoga-maye is very significant. Yoga means meditation on the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And Maha-yoga means those who engage in the devotional service of Vishnu. Meditation means remembering, smaranam. There are 9 different kinds of devotional service, of which smaranam is one process. The yogi remembers the form of Vishnu within his heart. Thus there were many devotees engaged in meditation on Lord Vishnu under the big banyan tree. The Sanskrit word Maha is derived from the affix Mahat. This affix is used when there is a great number or quantity. So Maha-yogam indicates that there were many great yogis and devotees meditating on the form of Lord Vishnu. Generally, such meditators are desirous of liberation from material bondage, and they are promoted to the spiritual world, to one of the Vaikunthas. Liberation means freedom from material bondage or nations. In the material world, we are suffering life after life because of our bodily identification. And liberation is freedom from that miserable condition of life. Text 34. Lord Shiva sat there, surrounded by saintly persons like Kuvera, the master of the Goyakas, and the 4 Kumaras, who were already liberated souls. Lord Shiva was grave and silent.
Saintly.
We call this the conch shell of Maya. She's always trying to take our mind away from the Bhagavatam, you know. It doesn't work, but still she's like crying, a wolf crying to the moon, you know. Lord Shiva sat there surrounded by saintly persons like Kuvera, the master of the Goyakas, and the 4 Kumaras, who were already liberated souls. Lord Shiva was grave and saintly. Purport. The personalities sitting with Lord Shiva are significant because the 4 Kumaras were liberated from birth. It may be remembered that after their birth, these Kumaras were requested by their father to get married and beget children in order to increase the population of the newly created universe. But they refused. And at that time, Lord Brahma was angry. In that angry mood, Rudra, or Lord Shiva, was born. Thus, they were intimately related. Kuvera, the treasurer of the demigods, is fabulously rich. Thus, Lord Shiva's association with the Kumaras and Kuvera indicates that he has all transcendental and material opulences. Actually, he is the qualitative incarnation of the Supreme Lord. Therefore, his position is very exalted. Text 35. The demigods saw Lord Shiva situated in his perfection as the master of the senses, knowledge, fruitive activities, and the path of achieving perfection. He was a friend of the entire world, and by virtue of his full affection for everyone, he was very auspicious. Purport. Lord Shiva is full of wisdom and tapasya, austerity, One who knows the modes of work is understood to be situated on the path of devotional service to the Supreme Personality of Godhead. One cannot serve the Supreme Personality of Godhead unless one has achieved full perfectional knowledge in the ways and means of performing devotional service. Lord Shiva is described here as Adishwara. Ishwara means controller, and Adishwara means particularly controller of the senses. Generally, our materially contaminated senses are apt to engage in sense gratificatory activities. But when a person is elevated by wisdom and austerity, the senses then become purified, and they become engaged in the service of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Lord Shiva is the emblem in the service of the Supreme Personality of God. Lord Shiva is the emblem of such perfection, and therefore in the scriptures it is said, Vaishnavanam Yatha Shambhu. Lord Shiva is the perfect Vaishnava. Lord Shiva, by his actions within this material world, teaches all conditioned souls how to engage in devotional service 24 hours a day. Therefore, he is described here as Lokamangala, good fortune personified for all conditioned souls. Text 36. He was seated on a deerskin and was practicing all forms of austerity. Because his body was smeared with ashes, he looked like an evening cloud. On his hair was the sign of a half moon, a symbolic representation. Purport. Lord Shiva's symptoms of austerity are not exactly like those of a Vaishnava. Lord Shiva is certainly the number one Vaishnava, but he exhibits a feature for the particular class of men who cannot follow the Vaishnava principles. The Shaivites, the devotees of Lord Shiva, generally dress like Lord Shiva, and sometimes they indulge in smoking and taking intoxicants. Such practices are never accepted by the followers of Vaishnava rituals. Text 37. He was seated on a straw mattress and speaking to all present, including the great sage Narada, to whom he specifically spoke about the absolute truth. Purport. The Lord was sitting on a mattress of straw because such a sitting place is accepted by persons who are practicing austerities to gain understanding of the absolute truth. In this verse, it is specifically mentioned that he was speaking to the great sage Narada, a celebrated devotee. Narada was asking Lord Shiva about devotional service, and Shiva, being the topmost Vaishnava, was instructing him. In other words, Lord Shiva and Narada were discussing the knowledge of the Vedas, but it is to be understood that the subject matter was devotional service. Another point in this connection is that Lord Shiva is the supreme instructor, and the great sage Narada is the supreme audience. Therefore, the supreme subject matter of Vedic knowledge is bhakti, or devotional service. Text 38. His left leg was placed on his right thigh, and his left hand was placed on his left thigh. In his right hand he held Rudraksha beads. This sitting posture was called Virasana. He sat in the Virasana posture, and his finger was in the mode of argument. Purport. The sitting posture described herein is called Virasana according to the system of Ashtanga Yoga performances. In the performance of yoga, there are 8 divisions, such as Yama and Niyama, controlling, following the rules and regulations, then practicing the sitting postures, etc. Besides Virasana, there are other sitting postures, such as Padmasana and Siddhasana. Practice of these asanas without elevating oneself to the position of realizing the Supersoul, Vishnu, is not the perfectional stage of yoga. Lord Shiva is called Yogeshwara, the master of all yogis, and Krishna is called Yogeshwara. Yogeshwara indicates that no one can surpass the yoga practice of Lord Shiva, and Yogeshwara indicates that no one can surpass the yogic perfection of Krishna. Another significant word is Tarka Mudra. This indicates that the fingers are opened and the second finger is raised along with the arm to impress the audience on some subject matter. This is actually a symbolic representation. Text 39. All the sages and demigods, headed by Indra, offered their respectful obeisances unto Lord Shiva with folded hands. Lord Shiva was dressed in saffron garments and absorbed in trance, thus appearing to be the foremost of all sages. Purport. In this verse, the word Brahmananda is significant. This Brahmananda, or Brahma Nirvana, is explained by Prahlad Maharaj. When one is completely absorbed in the Adhokshaja, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, who is beyond the sense perception of materialistic persons, one is situated in Brahmananda. It is impossible to conceive of the existence, name, form, qualities, and pastimes of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, because he is transcendently situated beyond the conception of materialistic persons. Because materialists cannot imagine or conceive of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, they may think that God is dead, but factually, he is always existing in his Satchidananda Vigraha, his eternal form. Constant meditation, concentrated on the form of the Lord, is called samadhi, ecstasy or trance. Samadhi means particularly concentrated attention. So one who has achieved the qualification of always meditating on the personality of Godhead is to be understood to be always in trance and enjoying Brahma Nirvana or Brahmananda. Lord Shiva exhibited those symptoms, and therefore it is stated that he was absorbed in Brahmananda. Another significant word is yoga kaksham. Yoga kaksham. Yoga kaksha is the sitting posture in which the left thigh is fixed under one's tightly knotted saffron-colored garments. And the words manunanam ajam are significant here because they mean a philosopher or one who is thoughtful and can think very nicely. Such a man is called Manu. Lord Shiva is described in this verse as the chief of all thinkers. Lord Shiva, of course, does not engage in useless mental speculation, but as stated in the previous verse, he is always thoughtful regarding how to deliver the demons from their fallen condition of life. It is said that during the advent of Lord Chaitanya, Sadashiva appeared as Advaita Prabhu, and Advaita Prabhu's chief concern was to elevate the fallen conditioned souls to the platform of devotional service to Lord Krishna. Since people were engaged in useless occupations which would continue their material existence, Lord Shiva, in the form of Lord Advaita, appealed to the Supreme Lord to appear as Lord Chaitanya to deliver these illusioned souls. Actually, Lord Chaitanya appeared on the request of Lord Advaita. Similarly, Lord Shiva has a sampradaya, the Rudra sampradaya. He is always thinking about the deliverance of the fallen souls as exhibited by Lord Advaita Prabhu. Text 40. Lord Shiva's lotus feet were worshipped by both the demigods and demons. But still, in spite of his exalted position, as soon as he saw that Lord Brahma was there among all the other demigods, he immediately stood up and offered him respect by bowing down and touching his lotus feet, just as Vamanadev offered his respectful obeisances to Kashyapa Muni. Purport. Kashyapa Muni was in the category of living entities, but he had a transcendental son, Vamanadev, who was an incarnation of Vishnu. Thus, although Lord Vishnu is the Supreme Personality of Godhead, he offered his respects to Kashyapa Muni. Similarly, when Lord Krishna was a child, he used to offer his respectful obeisances to his mother and father, Nanda and Yashoda. Also at the Battle of Kurukshetra, Lord Krishna touched the feet of Maharaj Yudhishthira because the king was his elder. It appears then that the personality of Godhead, Lord Shiva, and other devotees, in spite of their being situated in exalted positions, instructed by practical example how to offer obeisances to their superiors. Lord Shiva offered his respectful obeisances to Brahma because Brahma was his father, just as Kashyapa Muni was the father of Vamana. Text 41. All the sages who were sitting with Lord Shiva, such as Narada and others, also offered their respectful obeisances to Lord Brahma. After being so worshipped, Lord Brahma, smiling, began to speak to Lord Shiva. Purport. Lord Brahma was smiling because he knew that Lord Shiva is not only easily satisfied, but easily irritated as well. He was afraid that Lord Shiva might be in an angry mood because he had lost his wife and had been insulted by Daksa. In order to conceal this fear, he smiled and addressed Lord Shiva as follows. And we'll stop here for the reading. And if you want to find out what happened, you have to come back tomorrow night. Okay. Let us have some reflections. Any points that came out that stuck in your mind that you want?
Is Asutosha, is it like Nirvana or enlightenment?
Say that again?
Asutosha?
Asutosha means easily pleased.
Yeah,
It's a name of Lord Shiva.
right. Says that here, but is it, figuratively speaking, something like Nirvana?
No.
Or no?
It's just a word that describes Lord Shiva, his nature.
Okay.
It describes the nature of Lord Shiva. He's easily pleased and easily irritated. But particularly, is especially easily pleased. It takes a lot to get a rise out of Lord Shiva.
So can you expound why they still have the, I guess, Saivetas? How do you say it? Subites? Savites?
Shivites. Shivites.
I know because Marcus was in Nepal and he said,
Oh, they're everywhere.
Oh, Shivites in South India, North India, Nepal. They're everywhere.
Because there is a big temple of Shiva in Nepal.
Yeah. Because Lord Shiva is the qualitative incarnation of Krishna who takes charge of the mode of ignorance. So people in the mode of ignorance tend to be fallen, they tend to be not so qualified, they tend to be not so advanced in knowledge and understanding. But Lord Shiva is so compassionate that he delivers them also. And because he's easily pleased, they tend to go to him for material benefit. So sometimes the followers of Lord Shiva are quite opulent.
Yeah.
And there's always some fight between the Vaishnavas and the Shaivites as to who is supreme. But if someone studies the whole Bhagavatam and not just take one part out of context and puts it all together so they understand what the relationship is, all these exalted personalities in the universe and above in the spiritual world, then they'll understand that Lord Krishna is the source of everything, Mattak Paratanam Nanyat Kinchidasti Dhananjaya. In the Bhagavad Gita it is stated that Krishna is, there's no one that's above him or equal to him. And everything is resting upon him as pearls are strung on a thread. When the string is nicely, strung, pearls are nicely strung in a thread, you can't see the thread, you just see the pearls. That's a nicely strung strand of pearls. You can't see the thread, you can only see the pearls. So everything is resting on the energy of Lord Krishna. There's an effulgence that emanates from Lord Krishna. And all the spiritual and the material worlds are resting on that effulgence. And in one corner of that effulgence there's a cloud, and that cloud is this material world. So the cloud, just like there's a cloud in the sky, and when the cloud moves, the sky is still there. It's not that the cloud takes over the sky and there's no more sky, and then it moves to another place, and the sky stays there. The cloud is just resting in the sky. So like that, like the sun shining, and then the sun shines on the water and evaporates the water and makes a cloud, and then the cloud covers our vision of the sun. So Krishna is like that. The whole material world is his energy, and it's created by him, by his energy. So literally it means that in the ultimate sense, there is nothing spiritual. Everything is, material. Everything is actually spiritual. But a part of it is covering the original spiritual world. That's where we are. We're actually resting in the spiritual sky, but we're in this cloud, and therefore we can't see it. And we can't taste it either. So Lord Shiva is like that. He's very, very kind. He's the most kind. He's Vaishnavanam Yatakshambhu. He's the greatest Vaishnava. But he's a devotee of Vishnu. Wherever you see a prayer or a speech made by Lord Shiva in any of the Vedic literatures, he always concludes by worshipping Lord Vishnu and instructing others to worship Lord Vishnu. Carter, you had something.
Is there an infinite amount of material, material universes?
Yeah. In the cloud, there's the number of universes that correspond to the number of hair holes in the body of Krishna. In the beginning of the creation, the seeds of the universes come out of his pores of his body and through his breathing. And then he glances at that cloud, and through the glance, all the souls that in the whole cosmic manifestation means millions and millions of universes, and all those universes coming out of his pores, they all go into the material energy all at once. And then these seeds come up and they mix, and the whole thing mixes together. And then by Krishna's glance in the form of time, the whole thing begins to transform. Just like when you're in a laboratory and you put one chemical to another and it starts to, there's nothing material about Krishna, and there's no amount of combination of material elements that can create life or create the transformations that create forms in the material world. That's all set into motion by the vision of Lord Vishnu and his expansion of time. So the material elements, the seeds of the universes, the souls, and time, they all mix together and they create what is called the Mahatattva, the total material intelligence. And gradually, by the transformation of that energy, then the creation from subtle to gross, transform, just like in the womb of a mother. You know, the body just starts out with little pea, and then gradually it transforms. The energy in the body of the mother transforms, and the body is formed of the child. So the whole universe is like that.
May I ask another question?
Yes, please.
Within each separate universe, is the Bhagavatam the same?
Yes. Bhagavatam is eternal sound. And it's not that the creation of each time the universe is created or the universes are created, that it's exactly the same. It's not like a photo, a newsreel that comes back and you can play it again. It's the same, exactly the same. There are varieties of things that happen, but the basic structure is the same. There's one Brahma in each universe. There are 10 sages, and they're demigods, and they're all the planets and everything's arranged similar. But some universes are bigger than others. But the basic creation's the same in each universe.
Those are all material universes you're speaking of.
Yes.
It's just like
That's the cosmic manifestation. The sum total of all the universes that come out of Lord Vishnu. Rati Manjari, hey, Hare Krishna. Here, John is going to answer, is going to read your question, or your, whatever it is. Reflection.
Dear Guru Maharaj, please accept my humble obeisances. Do you have any particular advice or instruction on how we, as aspiring devotees of Krishna, should approach Lord Shiva? Should we focus on him in some way? ? Like, should we make him should we make a particular prayer to him? ?
It's not needed. When you worship Krishna, you automatically please Shiva, because he wants everyone to worship Krishna. But there are many prayers to Lord Shiva given in the Bhagavatam and in other scriptures, so you can recite those prayers. There's certainly nothing wrong with worshiping Shiva, but not as God, because he's not God. And if you worship a person who is not God, if they're honest, they won't be happy. But if the person's not honest and they want to be worshipped as God, even though they aren't God, then they'll become very happy. But they can't give you anything. They can just take and run away. That's what they do. They pretend incarnations of God. They take your money and promise you everything and then run away.
What was that?
What?
So in that same context, can you expound a little bit more then on the Trinity, the
Brahma, Vishnu, and Shiva?
Yeah.
Yes. Krishna expands himself into different forms to perform different pastimes and to do particular things. And one of those expansions, Mahavishnu, is responsible for the creation of the material world. Mahavishnu. So, when Mahavishnu, when all those universes are created, like I said, from his bodily pores, all the seeds of the universes, and then all the energies coagulate together around all those seeds. It's just like planting a seed, and then it grows, from that energy and the watering of Lord Vishnu's glance, Mahavishnu's glance. And then he enters into each universe as Garbhodakashaya Vishnu and brings the light and the water, the beginning of the things that are needed to start the creation. And then from him is grown Lord Brahma. He comes directly from the body of Garbhodakashaya Vishnu. So that Vishnu is a temporary manifestation of Mahavishnu, who oversees each universe. And from him, another expansion of Vishnu comes and enters into the heart of every single living being as a super soul. So there's 3 Vishnus. One of the Vishnus is the soul of all the material energy. Another is the soul of a particular universe. And one is the soul of the individual living beings in the heart of every living being. So the heart, the Vishnu soul, who is in the heart of all living beings, when Mahavishnu breathes in, because all of this is happening while Vishnu breathes out. His out breath and his in breath are 311 trillion years of our time.
Jesus.
So when we think it's a big deal, things that happen to us or things that happen in the world that are really horrible, that's because of our vision. But Krishna's time is even longer or shorter, depending how you look at it. And so the time it takes all that to happen for Krishna is not even a blink of the eye. So for Krishna it's not a big deal. And for us it's not really either, but we think it is, because we're in a dream. So that's Vishnu. He's maintaining the material world. And within each universe, then Brahma comes out of Lord Vishnu, and he is the qualitative incarnation of the mode of passion. And he engineers all that energy that is given to him by Vishnu, and he engineers the universe, puts all the planets in the right place, and the creation of living beings, and all these different things. The Vedas, he gets the Vedas, and then he disseminates the knowledge of the Vedas through different, sages and their followers and their descendants. And when Lord Brahma comes into being, before he finishes the passion part, he asks the 4 Kumaras, who are one of the first creations, is the 4 Kumaras. And Lord Brahma asks the 4 Kumaras to become grihastas and populate the universe, and they refuse. They're brahmacharis, through and through. They don't have anything to do with sex. They decided right from the beginning, we want to become. So they're put in charge of the yoga, knowledge of yoga, and knowledge of spiritual teachings. And Narada, he's put in charge of bhakti, the devotional side of knowledge and teachings. So therefore, Lord Shiva, when Brahma gets very angry, then Lord Shiva comes from the center of his forehead. He comes out, and he is in charge of the mode of ignorance. So his nature, and his duty in the material world is destroy things. Like when you burn something to ashes, that's Lord Shiva's energy, his influence. Or you put a fruit out and you just leave it there and it rots. That's Lord Shiva's energy. It's his influence. So anyway, so Brahma asked Shiva, because he was disappointed because the 4 Kumaras wouldn't procreate. So he said, okay, I'll give you name Shiva, you're very auspicious, so I order you to procreate. He says, okay. So he started to procreate, and his children, his babies, his prajas, they started working havoc and destroying everything. And Brahma was trying to create, and these guys were destroying it at the same time. It's like having a construction project. It's like, Saranga Thakur's house there. They're busy building it, and somebody comes along and starts taking it down before they start to build it. So he's like that, and Brahma says, what have I done? He says, okay, listen, your services will be needed later on, much later on, when it's time to destroy the universe. So you go to the forest and meditate. Cool it, And that's why you see Lord Shiva in Kailas, which we heard about in these verses we read tonight. What a beautiful place. and he just more or less meditates. And it really, it takes a lot to get a rise out of him. So that was the big deal when Daksa, insulted him. And then he sent that demon and they wreaked havoc. Then we'll hear later on what happens. There's an actual, end to the whole thing, and everything's rectified, and everyone becomes happy. Not like here, in this part of the material world. Hare Krishna. Something? Does that answer the question?
Yeah. So it's not exactly reincarnation. So when I was little, I learned that it's like the different gods took form as in reincarnation. That's what I don't, I may have
The soul is changing bodies.
Okay.
Just like you've changed body from a little girl to full-size woman.
Right.
Where's that body now? You can say it's the same body, but it grew. But actually, technically, it's not, because every single cell in the body has died and born again, and this body is completely different than the body you had when you were a baby.
Okay.
Completely different.
So it's like regeneration then, probably. I mean,
The body is changing,
right.
but the soul's staying the same. I mean, I can remember when I was a little boy, little 5-year-old, I can remember. Some people can remember earlier, some people can't remember so early. But we can remember being there. And even my mental proclivities changed, my body changed, and like now I can't jump. I used to be able to jump. Now I can't jump anymore. I got a different body. God knows what's going to happen next. But anyway, that's time. That's the way it is. And then, when you leave the body, when you die, you actually leave the body, and you take another body according to your mentality at the end of that body. That's called reincarnation. So the idea is, we will continue to be in this cycle of birth and death until we get Krishna consciousness and become fully God conscious, fully in love with Krishna. At the time of death, if we are fully in love with Krishna and we think of Krishna in love, then we are immediately transferred to the spiritual world in our original spiritual body. Because underneath this gross body that's just always changing, and the mind that's always changing, we have a spiritual body with senses, with mind, with intelligence, with everything. And that original spiritual body belongs in the spiritual world. That's the goal of life. So the goal of hearing the Bhagavatam is to expand our consciousness gradually to the point where we become attached to God and then in love with Krishna. That's the goal of hearing the Srimad-Bhagavatam, to become attached to the point of falling in love with Krishna. And when we do that, proportionately to how much love we have for Krishna, to that proportion we have less attachment to the material energy.
Thank you.
Hare Krishna. That's called nirvana. That's what nirvana is.
Okay.
Hare Krishna.
Okay.
Okay, I'm going to stop here because 6 o'clock the temple program is going to go. So we want you to all go to the temple program. And I thank you so much. Lovely questions, lovely reflections. And every day from reading Bhagavatam, we learn more and we get more and more spiritually. We progress spiritually more and more. Srimad-Bhagavatam ki jai. Lord Shiva ki jai. Gaur Premanandi. Hari Hari Bo. Yes.